Oh, miracle, miracle. Shoulders level. Shoulders are level. Nice, get in there. Go for that.
My health is my responsibility. My children's health are my responsibility. But your health is your responsibility.
And this is Dr.
And so,
Dane's Wellness Orientation
your
Workshop.
responsibility is that you have to take care of yourself. My job is to educate you what you can do to be healthier. Does that make sense? I can't make the choices for you, right? But what I found in 20 years of doing this is that the people that are most engaged with their health care, right, making good decisions, trying to learn about making good decisions, eating better, right, how to move their body, how does their posture affect them, right, how does emotional stress affect them, and how can they mitigate that. In other words, they take active control of their health and make better choices than people that are unhealthy, right? And that's 20 years of doing that. That's my only observation. But I can tell you that I know I've seen healthy people and I've seen sick people, and there is a significant difference. The healthy people make better choices. They take responsibility for their health. Does that make sense? Okay. So what? And again, why are you here? Because what percentage of your health potential are you currently living at? So if your health potential is 100%, if you had to just take a gut check right now and say, what percentage of my health am I currently living at? Is it 50%, 60%, 70%? You all got, if you're a new patient here, you got a wellness score. So you should know from your wellness score what percentage you're living at. Does that make sense? And I always tell my patients that physiology never lies. I could take every one of you and take you back in that exam room and tell you with absolute certainty how healthy you are or how healthy you're not. Does that make sense? I can look at your blood pressure, I can look at your lab works, I can look at your BMI, I can look at how your body's moving, I can look at your x-rays. Does that make sense? It would tell me a lot about how healthy you are. And most people think that health is when you feel good. Right? If I asked everybody in this room to write down the answer to this question, what is health? The most common response I would get is health is when you feel good. Does that make sense? And I'll never forget a day my dad called me, crying like a baby. And none of you guys have probably met my dad, but he's kind of a real big, tough, burly guy. Teresa's met my dad. He's a great guy. I hardly ever have seen my dad cry, maybe one other time in my life. So when your dad cries, you listen, right? And his best friend had just dropped dead of a heart attack, right? Literally, a couple hours before. And I get tingles just thinking about it. But he said to me something really interesting. He said, he felt great. Nobody knew he had heart disease, right? Nobody knew he had a problem. He looked great. He exercised, but he had a heart attack. So his first symptom that he had a cardiovascular disease was also his last symptom, right? How many people here have heard of a woman who goes to her doctor, right, and gets a mammogram, and all of a sudden she's diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer? Never had any symptoms. Does that make sense, right? So we base our health on how we feel, but the average cancer is in the body for 7 years before it becomes diagnosable with a mammogram or through a screening. 7 years. Right? So you could have cancer in your body for 7 years and it hasn't become a pea-sized lump that's diagnosable yet. And you have cancer, but you feel good. So you're going along in life. You could have a blockage forming in your coronary artery and you feel great until all of a sudden you don't anymore because you have a heart attack. My 43-year-old cousin, who is literally a year and a half older than me, I played football and wrestled with him, dropped dead of a heart attack, 3 children, 43 years old. That's not normal in America, guys, and it's happening more and more often. And I know with absolute certainty it's happening because we are not being educated. We live in an environment that doesn't support us to make good choices, right? When there's fast food on every block, and when I go to a water park like I did on vacation and took my kids, and I see little 7, 8-year-old kids with bellies hanging over their bathing suits, there's a problem in America. And the problem is we forget we're animals, right? If I put food in front of I have 2 dogs, they'll keep eating and eating and eating until I take the food away. Does that make sense? We're not very much different, are we? Right? And so the reason that we're so large in America, and they just came out with the new obesity statistics, we now have 30%. Every state has over 20 to 25% obesity in their state. Some states, 12 states, are over 30% obesity, where it means that almost 1 out of 3 persons, not overweight, is obese. Okay? And so we have a real problem in this country, and I know I can't solve all the problems, but what I can do is take personal responsibility for my community, my patients, to make sure they're making the right decisions. So my job is not to be your friend as your doctor. My job as your doctor is to hold a mirror up in front of your face, and if you're making bad decisions, my job is to ask you why. Right? Lovingly, I'm going to support you. But if I'm doing my job, you're getting healthier. Does that make sense? If I'm not doing my job, you're not getting healthier. And we know, not through how you feel, but what we do back in that office, whether you're getting healthy or not. Does that make sense? So ask yourself, what percentage of your current health are you